Hey everyone, ready to dive into something different today?
Different how?
Well, we're not looking at research papers this time.
Oh, what are we looking at?
We're taking a deep dive into a single piece of creative writing.
Interesting. What's it about?
It imagines an encounter between Elon Musk and, well, let's just say a character
Okay, I'm intrigued. Where does this encounter take place?
at an airport.
Sounds relatable, who doesn't have airport stories? But what makes this piece stand out?
It uses this very specific scenario to explore a much bigger issue.
Like what?
How quick we are to judge people based only on what we see.
Ah, I see. And why it's so important to challenge those assumptions.
Exactly. So picture this. Elon Musk is at the airport. He's flying to Austin for a SpaceX meeting, but he's not exactly dressed for a magazine cover.
More of a casual look.
Think hoodie, jeans, trying to blend in.
Makes sense. I mean, he's a busy guy. You know those moments when you can feel the airport stress getting to everyone?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Elon's about to get a big dose of that stress.
It would be easy to assume that someone dressed like that at an airport is just another passenger, right?
Right. Just trying to grab a snack and get to their gate.
Same as everyone else.
Exactly. But then in walks this Karen.
Oh boy, here we go.
She immediately zeroes in on Elon, convinced he's trying to cut the line.
Maybe even sneak into first class.
Her entire interaction with him is based solely on how he looks.
And she is not shy about letting everyone know what she thinks.
Oh no, not shy at all.
She really goes all in, doesn't she? Accusing him of lying, threatening to call security.
Yikes.
You can practically feel the secondhand embarrassment radiating off the page.
You'd think at that point, even Elon Musk would crack.
Right. But that's not what the writer gives us.
That's interesting. What happens instead?
Despite being publicly humiliated, Elon stays calm. He even offers his first-class ticket to security as proof.
It's almost like the writer is setting us up to expect a certain kind of reaction from someone like Elon Musk.
Yeah. You kind of expect him to unleash a Twitter storm on her right then and there.
Right. I mean, that's what he's known for. But instead, we get something totally different.
We get this really controlled, almost zen-like response, which, of course, only makes Karen double down. I mean, you can just picture the crowd watching this unfold, right?
Oh, absolutely. Phones out. Everyone's thinking, is this really happening?
It's like a scene straight out of a movie.
It is. And just when you think it can't get any more awkward, Elon makes the big reveal.
Put down. Instant recognition.
Yeah.
What happens next?
The crowd gasps. My favorite detail is how the author describes Karen's face.
How does the author describe it?
White as a sheet.
Perfect. It's like all the air gets sucked out of the waiting area.
It is. And then everything shifts.
How so?
In that instant, Karen's entire perception of Elon changes. Suddenly, it's not about his clothes or his place in line.
What's it about?
It's about who he is.
Wow, that's a really powerful way of showing how quickly our opinions can change when we get more information.
Isn't it? It really makes you think about how often we probably do this in our own lives.
Make judgments without having the full picture.
Exactly. And the story doesn't stop there. Instead of yelling at Karen or storming off, Elon uses this very public, very awkward moment to teach a lesson.
What does he do?
He basically tells her, judging someone based on how they look says a lot more about you than it does about me.
He could have really gone off on her, huh?
He could have. But he uses this as an opportunity to make a bigger point. And this is where things get really interesting.
How so?
Because the story isn't just about challenging assumptions, it's also about how people in positions of power and influence choose to use that power.
That's a good point. So how does Elon use his power in this situation?
He could have easily made this all about himself, about how wronged he was.
Right, he could have played the victim card.
Exactly. But instead, he turns it into a teachable moment.
And he does this by calling out that Karen probably does this to a lot of people.
Yes. People who don't have the platform or the resources to defend themselves. I bet in that moment, Karen wished she could have been beamed up to Mars, right alongside Elon.
Oh, I bet she did. So what happens next? What does Elon do after Karen slinks away?
Well, that's where things take an unexpected turn.
Okay, I'm hooked. What does he do?
He uses the encounter to springboard into a conversation about something he's really passionate about, STEM education.
STEM education. That's interesting. Why STEM education specifically? It doesn't seem directly related to what just happened.
On the surface, no. But think about the assumptions Karen made about Elon. She saw a guy in a hoodie and immediately decided he didn't belong in first class. But what if her perception of success of what someone in STEM looks like had been different?
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
This seemingly small act of encouraging the boy connects to a larger point the story makes, that access to education, specifically in STEM fields, is key to breaking down these societal barriers. If Karen had seen more people like Elon, people who defied those stereotypes, would she have reacted the same way? It's subtle, but the writer is making a connection between challenging assumptions and creating a more diverse and inclusive future in fields like science and technology.
It's like the writer is saying that Karen's outburst wasn't just about a first-class ticket, but about a much deeper lack of understanding and exposure.
Exactly. And the story doesn't end at the gate. It follows Elon onto the plane where he encounters a young boy who dreams of being an inventor. And instead of brushing him off, Elon takes the time to talk to him to encourage his dreams.
That's such a classic Elon Musk move, though, isn't it? The billionaire tech CEO inspiring the next generation. It feels a bit predictable.
It might seem that way, but I think there's more to it than that. Remember, Elon just went through this whole ordeal with Karen. He was publicly humiliated, judged unfairly, and yet he still chooses to engage with this boy to share his passion for innovation. It would have been easy for him to just put on his headphones and tune everyone out.
So are you saying that even after that encounter, he still wants to believe in people?
No, but
That he hasn't let Karen's negativity get to him?
I think that's a big part of it. The story emphasizes that progress, both personal and societal, comes from choosing to stay engaged, to keep setting a positive example, even when it's hard, even when you've been knocked down.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. It's like saying, okay, the world threw me a Karen, but I'm not going to let that stop me from connecting with people who genuinely want to learn and grow. And by doing that, Elon is sort of turning this negative experience into something positive, even inspiring.
Right, and that brings us to the thematic conclusion of the piece. The writer leaves us with this idea that progress isn't about avoiding negativity altogether. It's about persisting, pushing forward, and setting a positive example even in the face of that negativity.
It's like he's saying, look, I can launch rockets into space and people still make snap judgments about me. If I can keep going, so can you.
Exactly. And that persistence is reflected not just in Elon's personal life, but in his work with SpaceX, his push for sustainable energy, his advocacy for STEM education. He's constantly pushing boundaries, challenging the status quo, and inspiring others to do the same. The airport encounter becomes this microcosm of the challenges he faces on a larger scale, and his reaction to it becomes a blueprint for how to navigate those challenges.
It's interesting how the writer uses the airport setting as this sort of pressure cooker for human interaction. You've got people from all walks of life crammed together, stressed, anxious, rushing to get where they need to go. It's the perfect environment for those snap judgments and assumptions to bubble to the surface.
You're right. Airports bring out those raw emotions. And the story uses that to highlight how those pressures, those initial reactions we have to people can either divide us like they did with Karen and Elon initially, or if we choose to challenge them, they can actually be a catalyst for something positive.
It's like a little social experiment playing out right there in the boarding area. And in this case, Elon, by choosing to respond the way he did, manages to turn a potentially ugly situation into a moment of reflection, even inspiration. It's not about ignoring the negativity. It's about choosing how to respond to it.
And that choice, that's what the story is really about. It's about recognizing that we all have the power to decide whether we want to be a Karen or an Elon in those everyday situations.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Elon and Karen and what the writer's trying to say with this story.
Mm-hmm.
But what does this all mean for our listener? What can they take away from this encounter? I think it's easy to read this and think, well, I'm not Elon Musk.
Right.
I don't have his platform or his resources.
Exactly. But that's missing the point, isn't it?
It is. This isn't about being a billionaire or launching rockets. It's about recognizing that, well, we all have those Karen moments. We all make those snap judgments.
Yeah, based on appearances, backgrounds, sometimes even just like a fleeting first impression.
So it's not about being perfect all the time. It's about being aware of those biases we all carry and just trying to, I don't know, do better.
Exactly. And it's about having the courage to challenge those assumptions, not just in ourselves, but in others too.
That's a good point. Think about how differently this whole encounter could have gone.
Totally.
If someone else in that line had spoken up, had said something, anything.
Right. Like, hey, maybe we should give him the benefit of the doubt.
Would Karen have been so quick to judge then?
Right. But nobody did.
And that speaks to the power of, what? Collective action. Of not being afraid to speak up against injustice, even when it's uncomfortable.
Even when you might be the only one, it's easy to just sit back and watch, think someone else will handle it.
But this story shows us that even small acts of courage, they can have a ripple effect. They can change things.
Yeah, absolutely. So what can our listener do with this? We can't all run into Elon Musk at the airport.
Right, exactly. So how do we apply these lessons?
Well, we encounter Karens and Elons every day. Maybe not in such a, I don't know, dramatic way, but they're there.
In our everyday lives.
Right. Think about the coworker who gets dismissed just because they don't fit the corporate mold, or the student who gets overlooked because they're from a different background.
Or even the family member whose opinions we just tune out, because they're different from our own. Those are the moments. Those are the moments where we have a choice to make.
Exactly. It's about taking those lessons from the airport and applying them to our own lives, our own interactions, choosing empathy over judgment, curiosity over assumptions.
Remembering that everyone has a story.
Yeah, a unique set of experiences that has shaped who they are. And those small interactions, those little moments, they can be opportunities to make a difference.
So what you're saying is, you might not be able to launch a Tesla into space,
Uh-huh. Right?
but you can launch a conversation. You can launch a moment of understanding. Launch a ripple of kindness.
And that's where real change begins. I think this story raises an important question for all of us. If the roles were reversed, how would you have reacted in that situation?
Would you have been the Karen? Or the Elon?
Yeah. It's easy to judge Karen's behavior in the story, but it's a lot harder to examine our own biases, our own reactions, when we're in those kinds of situations.
This story isn't just about reading about Elon Musk and Karen.
Right. It's about looking inward, examining our own beliefs, and asking ourselves, how can I be better?
How could I be more mindful, more compassionate, and just more proactive in creating a world where everyone feels seen, heard, respected?
That's a great question to leave everyone with.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. And until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep striving to be a little less Karen and a little more Elon out there.
Oh.